Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you. Featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. You know, my guest today has been an English teacher for more than 30 years, and he's also been a camp director, administrator, and consultant for almost as long. He's come to realize that children today need to learn how to deal with unexpected struggles in their lives. So he wrote a memoir to help teens and their parents navigate through a myriad of issues that often confront them when they're least expected. You know, it's very interesting to have somebody talk about those kinds of issues because our children are facing so much today. And I think that Marc Hoberman, our guest today, has a lot to tell you. So I want to welcome to the show Marc Hoberman.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Susan.
Well, you know, Marc, I like to have people on the show who offer all kinds of education and information about various topics. And your topic is something that is really outstanding because you really want to help kids overcome illness, adversity. You want to help their parents. You want to help teens connect with overcoming adversity and reduce stressful situations. What could be better than that? So let's start with our first question to you, and that is, what methods do you use to manage your classroom effectively?
Well, basically, I go by one mantra, and that's, you know, and I teach classroom management to other teachers a lot also, doing staff development. The number one thing is this: a good lesson is the best management tool. You could have the best classroom management in the world, but if you have a boring lesson, they get tired, they get bored, they start talking amongst themselves. If you don't go bell to bell and teach a full lesson, that's when you lose them. You have to really limit downtime. So, first of all, a really good, strong lesson plan and delivery is really the best classroom management tool from the onset.
Yeah, but Marc, you know, there was a time, perhaps when you and I went to school and we were in elementary and junior high school and even in high school, you know, it didn't seem like the kids had the same problems. They seemed to learn a lot of things about civics, about English, about various other topics that really helped them, and they didn't create the problems that we seem to have in our classroom now. What do you attribute to that?
Interesting. It's funny. Usually I'm the one in the interview who first brings up back in the day. I'm so glad you said back when you were in school and back when I was in school. Back when you were in school and I was in school, there was one way to learn, and that's the way the teacher taught, and that was it. So, you know, it's funny. I'm one of the educators, although I'm progressive in education. I believe in some of the old school ways. I believe that there are different modalities, and people are getting the benefit of some are audio learners, some are visual learners. But I honestly think that our generation has done a disservice for the new generation, the kids who are in school today. I think we're a little too. It's okay to be nurturing. I don't think it's okay. Some colleagues disagree with me. I don't think I should have to lend pens and pencils to high school students. I never let them not have one if they need one, but I'll say something like, well, you brought your sneakers today. Oh, but I need those. But you need this too. I think that we're kind of lax in our expectations. I think this is the give me generation. Unfortunately, because of technology, it's also the right now generation. You know, when I was a teenager and I was diagnosed with epilepsy, which is what the memoir is about, I had to go, and I'll say a word you know, your listeners may not, but I had to go look it up in the library, in microfiche. On a microfiche, and the kids don't even know what I'm talking about when I say that. I had to scroll through this and that. I mean, the old-time scroll where you did it by hand, and you know that. But the kids, you know, can go on the internet and bam, get it right then and there. So they really want things right then and there. I think we don't say no often enough. I think that we need to take a lot of the blame. You're also in a world now where when you and I were in school, the divorce rate was nowhere near 50%.
Right.
And as of today, it's over 50%. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're dealing with people who are in families who are struggling financially sometimes, who have two jobs, or there's a parent working who normally would not work. So it's much more difficult. I think we are also competing with a lot of different sports, a lot of different clubs, And, and that plus the technology and looking at their text every 5 minutes, that's made it difficult. And so many more, when I was in school, if I was fidgeting in my chair, they'd say, oh, look at how much energy he has. Now it's, oh, he must have ADD and that kind of thing. So all these things put together have certainly changed the student that's sitting in front of us today.
Well, you mentioned a few things that are really important, and that is that we are now a technological society. Now, a lot of people would say that's great. I mean, because you can access anything in a moment, in a flash. And when I look at the kids and I look at adults, adults are no better. What they are doing is they're just, on their phone constantly. They're messaging people. They're actually, getting to tell people everything about themselves through companies like Facebook, Twitter, and things of that nature. Now, I know, and you know, that it's the way it is. This is what our society has evolved into. But it sounds like there's some detrimental things to it as well. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the Facebook and stuff. I mean, I do, as you mentioned, some camp consulting also. And, bullying was always around, but this cyberbullying has just gone beyond viral. No pun intended. I mean, it is so out there, and people can instantly, from a class, first period, can say something bad about somebody, and in the hallways, third period, 95 kids know about it. So it's very hard to combat that. So certainly you are right that, and it can be great. It is. Look, I think nothing's better than GPS except for one thing. My kids, if I drop my kids off 3 blocks from my house and one is out of college and one's in college, I don't think they could get home if they didn't have their phone with them. Yeah. So they've leaned on technology so much. That's okay, but if there's a blackout, we're going to have some 2 or 3 very ugly days.
Now you're bringing up something else. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about your book. Now, tell our audience what it's about, why you wrote it, what inspired you to do it, and is it now having a lot of influence in all the different societies and communities around our country?
Right. So, Search and Seizure, with a subtitle, Overcoming Illness and Adversity. When I was 16 years old, very popular in Yonkers, New York, which is where I was born. Loving it, having a great time. My parents came in and said, look, Dad wants to semi-retire. He's going to open up a third furniture store with his partners in Florida. We're leaving in 3 weeks. So that was a very, very tough blow. And 3 weeks later, we left. I went to Florida. I had money saved up. I always worked, even since the age of 13, delivering newspapers and penny savers. And lo and behold, I bought a beautiful car, a 1977 Mustang. Only 2 or 3 years old at the time. And 3 months after first buying it and getting to Florida, I was driving with my cousin Candace to visit my cousin Marc, her brother, at the University of Florida in Gainesville. And I passed the exit 3 times. And I have no memory of this. This is what she told me. She kept saying, Marc, you're passing the exit, you're passing the exit. And I started to drive finally off the exit and went towards the toll booth and had a grand mal seizure. And luckily it was a toll booth, because before I went to the seizure, I did sort of know to slow down a little bit, but she had to drive through it because I couldn't drive. I was out of it. Diagnosed that day with epilepsy, came home with Dilantin, an anti-seizure medication, and told I had epilepsy. So that started a very interesting time in my life. As a teenager, it was very rough. It was stressful enough being away from my friends. I had some relatives, but just a couple of new friends in Florida, and it was very difficult. I did not have great medical care. I was not controlled. I had fewer seizures, but I still had seizures. A powerful line in my book is that I've had over 20 seizures. I've never seen a seizure in my life. Thank God, not even in the classroom from one of my own students. But, you're totally incoherent. And in my prologue in the book, it says you have no memory of the seizure, the blessing and the curse. Yes, it's a blessing. You don't remember hurting yourself. You have the residual effects if you fell down, but it's also a curse because you don't remember something about yourself. You have no control. Right. So I started to write it, had some very difficult times, then decided, even as a teenager, I'm not going to, which is the mantra of the book, I will not let my illness define me. I'm going to define it. My mother came in and I remember to my room the day I was diagnosed, somebody who reviewed the book and gave it 5 stars, a professional reviewer, said that the advice my mother gave me should be advice every parent gives every child. She sat me down. She said, look, you're a good-looking boy. You're funny. You're smart. And you're epileptic. And you're going to have to deal with that. And this is going to keep you grounded, and we're going to find the right doctors. And I tell people I didn't become who I am in life at the age of 54 because, in spite of my epilepsy. I became who I am because of my epilepsy. I embraced it. I respected that I had it. I went and I did a lot of research in the library, as I said, hours of research that could now be done in 15 minutes. And I will tell you that until the book came out last year, there weren't 10 people in my life who knew about it. I had relatives who were very angry at me last year because they read it and said, is this a joke? We didn't know you had this. How is that possible? Even as an adult, there's a stigma attached. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I'm an educator. I should not have been. I started the book a couple of years ago, put it aside when I got kind of busy. And then when my son was about 17, around the same age when I was diagnosed with epilepsy, he was diagnosed with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome.
Right.
He had stomach issues, then he had some skin issues, and he became very depressed, lost some weight. And I said, look, let's do this methodically. I looked through doctors. I researched things with him on my own. And my wife said, how are you so calm about this? I'm a basket case. I said, to come to think of it, I think it's because I went through it. It's not like I don't care. I'm very emotional about this, but I have a job to do now. And I said, as an educator, which I've been at heart, and this is my 33rd year teaching, I said, if I could help you and help our son and help myself through this, I could help other people. And it's not about epilepsy. It's about diabetes, bullying. It's about any kind of stress and struggle and how you deal with it and how you build your own support network. So that was the motivation behind it. That's how it's affecting people. I'm doing a lot of radio shows, and I'm seeing a lot of downloads. It's available on Amazon and Kindle, and from all over the world, in the UK, and obviously this country. And I'm now a member of a lot of Facebook groups. And I looked at the book, and I said, what? My parents were really good. They handled it medically pretty well. We moved back to New York and got an excellent doctor, top 3 in the country at Columbia Presbyterian. But emotionally, they didn't handle it as well as they did medically. And I think a book like this, which is a very fast read, it's a 2-hour read, which has some humor in it, has some sadness in it, all true, all factual, I think they would have fared better. I think you need to know you're not alone. So that was the motivation for me to finish the book.
Yeah. Now, what do you attribute to the fact that now we're seeing so many young people with diseases, and I'll call them diseases, like ADD? It seems to me that when I want to mention when we were young, we didn't seem to see people like that. There seemed to be a lot of people with, I'm not going to be politically correct here, but they were called retarded, they were called slow, but ADD, no, I don't recall that. So what do you attribute to that?
Interesting question. Well, first of all, I'm going to be politically incorrect for a second also. My sons love South Park. And I haven't seen a lot of episodes, but I walked by one day, and they said, I think this kid has ADD. And the guy came in, and the teacher said, I can take care of this from when they thought that, I was a little off. And the guy just went up to the kid and yelled and said, stop squirming around. And the kid stopped. So it's like such a dichotomy between that and what happens today. I don't know if ADD can be proven. It's not like asthma. It's not like epilepsy. There's no real definitive test. Do I believe that there's medications that have helped people who have the diagnosis of ADHD? Not that I don't even say ADD anymore. They say ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But there's also behavioral ways of fixing it. I'm not the biggest fan of medication unless you absolutely need it. My son was diagnosed with ADD. I want to say he was in 6th grade. We did everything we could before we went to the medication, and we did eventually go to medication, and it helped a little bit. And he didn't love the way he felt on it. We made a lot of changes, but we had we found a doctor who was really good at the pharmacology of it and finding the right medication. I think people are overdiagnosed. I think that out of 1,000 people, diagnosed with ADD. I don't know if that's the true number because I said there's no definitive test. If you speak to Scientologists, they don't believe in it at all. I know that Tom Cruise, for example, has been very vocal about that. So I just honestly think from what I've seen in 33 years of education, I think teaching has changed. I think parenting has changed a lot. I think that all of this put together has created diagnosis and the need for certain things. And people need therapy for real reasons. People need medication for real reasons. I just think that we need to be more careful about making certain diagnoses on certain illnesses. So certainly it did not exist. I mean, people tell me, and I believe that I am a little ADHD myself. I say when my son and I are together, it's like DADD. It's dad and him. But I just think that there's other methods to control people, I actually want to say control, to manage people's behavior, but sometimes medication is needed. But I think sometimes some teachers get frustrated and just right away say, boom, hey, I don't want to do this. I got to get this kid tested and that kind of thing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about teachers. Now, you're a teacher, and you're also a staff trainer and instructional coach at schools and in the camping industry. Now, how do you put all those things together? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, to be a teacher and then also to be trainers and to work in schools and various other places. So, tell our audience a little bit how you kind of put your time or divide your time. How do you divide your time, and what seems to be the most important thing that you love to do?
Excellent question. Interesting, because there's no panacea. There's no perfect answer for that. It's almost like one time my wife and I said, let's do a budget. Let's see everything we spend for a month and figure it out. And we figured it out, and we spent $300 more a month than we earned. And I said, we're not doing this math problem anymore. And that was the end of that. I say that analogy because if I put on paper what I did, you could never plan out what I do, because maybe it's because I'm a little ADD. I really can get a lot done. But, teaching does end for me at 2 o'clock, and a lot of people go home at 2 o'clock, and it's wonderful to their families. I've always loved to work. It's hereditary. My father was a tremendous worker, always worked up until the age of 70, 71. And but it really is, you touched upon it. What do I like to do? All of the things you mentioned is my passion. All the things I do, my tutoring business is based in teaching. Being a teacher is based in teaching. Writing this memoir was based on teaching. I do talks at I'm going to go to the Long Island Epilepsy Foundation. I'm doing a fundraiser for a local organization. I've done some book signings, but it's all to teach people and bring a message. So all that I do, even the camp training and the educational consults I do online across the country for parents, it's all done with the passion of making and helping children learn better, helping parents navigate through the educational system, helping teachers manage their classroom more effectively and do more effective lesson plans. So I guess it's because my passion is in any kind of education.
That brings me, Mark, to the question that teachers, again, I keep on saying in our time, but teachers, a long time ago people loved their teachers. In fact, I can remember my 6th grade teacher. She had such an influence on me, and it sounds so crazy, but the fact of the matter is that I actually even loved her. I used to think about what it's like to go to school and to really think that this teacher cares about me. But today, we hear so many horror stories about how teachers are really not being able to control their classes. They give up very early because they just can't control the kids. So do you think that teachers today are very different than the teachers when we were young?
I'll tell you, you really hit upon an incredible vicious cycle. So I have to tell you that years ago when I lived in Yonkers, I was at the supermarket. I think back then it was Wallbounds. I saw my teacher in one of the aisles. About 7 or 8 years old. I almost had a heart attack. I said, what are you doing here? I don't know if I thought there were special people and food was delivered to them, but, what are you doing outside of the classroom? You have a life? I mean, it was such a profound respect
right
back then. But I have to tell you, I had some great teachers. I had some boring teachers. I had some mean teachers. There are great plumbers and bad plumbers. There are bad doctors. I know I had some of them. There are phenomenal doctors. I know I have some of them. By and large, the teachers of today that I see are more involved in their kids' lives, their students' lives, are more interested, are, I think, studying more demanding classes because of the new Common Core and other things. There are many states state that now you need 100 hours of staff development every 5 years. It varies from state to state to have ongoing training and get better. There's DASA training. disability and helping students and making sure nobody bullies anybody and that kind of thing. The child abuse seminar, that didn't exist when my teachers, were studying to become teachers. So if your question is, have the teachers changed? I think they've changed for the better. I think that the clientele, the students in front of us are more demanding, are sometimes more difficult to teach. And, if I've done over 60 PowerPoints for my presentations in my career. I've never made a PowerPoint in my life. Usually a 13-year-old or a 17-year-old, I say, hey, can you do PowerPoint? And bam, I tell them what I want. So certainly they're so much better off technologically, but I just think that they're so much busier now, again, because of the divorce rate. I think it's harder when they're in single-family homes.
Right.
I think that some of the curriculum is more demanding. Some of the curriculum is not as good as it was, I'll use the bad term, back in the day.
Sure.
Certainly the grammar you and I learned and diagramming sentences and things of that nature were things that were thrown away 20 years ago. Somebody came into my classroom in the Bronx 25 years ago and said, give me your grammar books. I said, oh, I'm getting new ones? They said, no, we're teaching grammar right, from the book we're reading as it is. That changed things a lot. So I just think that the kids may be smarter now, I don't know, but I do know that we are competing with a lot more. It used to be school, maybe one club, and that was it. Now it's school, Facebook, Instagram, anything else, Snapchat, soccer, cheerleading. It's more demanding to get into colleges now, so they're doing 9,000 types of community service. So I think that we're vying for the students' attention when they're being split in many ways, which also causes stress, which also stresses the parents out and the kids out, and it creates, as I said in the beginning of the answer to my question, this vicious cycle.
Right.
I think the teachers are great that I know by and large. I think it's a more demanding job now than it was. Not that it wasn't back then, but I just think it's very demanding now.
Yeah. Now, Mark, there's another situation or another kind of life that is competing with the way we do our work. So what I'm talking about is that there used to be a lot of arts in the schools. I mean, people, and I'm talking about administrators, teachers, the parents, the kids themselves, they loved to play music, they loved to dance, they loved to do all kinds of arts, shows. I remember when I was about 8 years old, maybe even 10, that there were these great shows, and the teachers would write the shows. They would actually write them, and the kids would perform.
Wow.
And today, what do we see? We don't see anything like that. They cut out all the money for it. Now, there's got to be a reason, and do you think it's a positive reason? Because maybe they're teaching more courses that are needed in the society now, or do you think that taking arts out of the school is a detrimental thing for the kids?
You're going to get a very one-sided answer from me based on experience. I've played the clarinet for over 40 years. I was in band since I want to say third or fourth grade. We played for President Ford in Yonkers when I was in, I believe, ninth grade. It was so important in our school and such a fabulous program that in ninth grade, we had a ninth grade band class. Everybody in the class, all 30 kids, were in the band. It was high school. When the bell rang, the class went together to the social studies class. So what more support can you have that all four core teachers had the same students, and that allowed us to have what's called sectionals. The clarinets met on Mondays, and then the next week it was on Tuesdays. It was beyond a major part of my life. Most of the friends I met in high school were in my band class. Even though I moved away in 10th grade, 7th, 8th, 9th, and the beginning of 10th grade, I knew all these kids from that. Being able to read music is unbelievable. I also, as an adult, I took piano lessons just to learn chords, sing along, and have some fun. But it's such a great thing to be able to do. It's so relaxing. It's so great for the brain. I think it is. The word detrimental is not nearly strong enough. It's not detrimental that they've taken away the arts. It's tragic and bordering on criminal.
So if you had a chance to do and to help get the schools to bring in people who are in the arts. If you went to, say, the Board of Education or places of that nature and you said to them, listen, I'm a teacher. I'm a trainer. I've been involved for many, many years, and I recognize that it is a tragedy that we don't have the arts in the schools. How do you think they'd answer?
If you said that to who?
To the Board of Education, to anybody who's in charge of the budgets for the schools, or even our Congress, even our president. I mean, I know that, well, let me give you an example. Right now, Mrs. Obama, she's very interested in dietary plans. So she's created a program that teaches kids how to plant, how to eat good foods. And that's a wonderful thing because, you know, I mean, it's back to nature. It's back to the beginning of what kids need to know. Now, if you were to talk to any of those people, how would you say, or what would you say to them that would maybe change their minds about where they put their money?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's a politician, board member, anybody who would not agree that not having more of the arts, you know, is beneficial, that you have to have the arts. So I think it all does border down to money. I think that I know my school district gets hurt a lot where I am because of the formula, the way they figure out the monies for the school district. So it really is just a monetary problem, and that's really the tragedy of it. You know, a monetary problem shouldn't be a problem. A problem with somebody who can't be controlled with the proper medication, that's a problem you can have because money won't fix that. But, you know, the arts is a major part of making a holistic child. And I don't know what could be said. I think that we have to tap into corporate sponsors more. I know many years ago when they started the lottery, X amount of money was supposed to be given towards the schools every year. Did that ever happen? I don't know. I don't hear about it. I've never heard anybody say we just got a $3 million grant. We're going to do full-day kindergarten because this is the money we got from the lottery. So I've never really heard that. I just think that it's, you know, I know we need the military and I know all these other things, and money is an issue.
Yeah.
But I want the brains of the politicians to get together and say, we need the arts, and we're not going to get up until we figure out how to expand the arts in all school districts. That's what needs to happen because, truthfully, they're famous for saying the kids are our future. I want a better future for your kids. What are you doing about that?
Right.
Because certainly the arts would bring that. So I think talk is cheap. I think actions speak louder than words. And I think that the arts have to be a major part of education. Major.
Right. Now, also, Mark, it seems that for quite a bit of time, there's been a controversy over charter schools versus regular public schools. Have you been part of that debate?
Not really. You know, I think in the county they may be starting some charter schools at some point. I'm a product of a public education. I didn't love the education I got in Florida, to be honest with you, but as far as when I was in New York, it was outstanding, great teachers. So I think that anybody can learn given the right set of circumstances. And I think in a perfect world, it's not the school, it's the instructor. It's not even curriculum that much. It's really how it's delivered, because I could be teaching Romeo and Juliet in one room and somebody else could be teaching in another room and doing a far better job than I am, or not as doing it as well as I am. But I think that education is really about the reception you get from the kids, how they encode and decode the information that's given to them. So I'm not the biggest believer in private school, not private school. I'm a biggest believer in what's the best fit for your child. If it's a charter school, okay. If it's a private school and a religious school, okay. But the bottom line is, how are they going to learn? Because if you can't learn in one school, you can't learn in another school.
Right. And is it the responsibility of parents now? We've been talking about the arts and various programs that we think would be wonderful for the kids. Is it the responsibility of maybe parents to contribute to that as opposed to our government?
You mean monetarily?
Correct.
Well, let's be honest. They are contributing. If I'm paying X amount of thousands of dollars a year in taxes, some are for school taxes. Now, they're taking my money and they're putting it where they think it's best, where the Board of Ed is going to decide with some input, sometimes not enough input. I think it's the parents' responsibility to go and make sure the money they're giving in taxes, the money that's being spent by their school districts, is spent appropriately and most effectively for the benefit of the students. sure. I think they do fundraisers. I see all the time. They do car washes and stuff. So yes, to a certain extent they do. But let's not forget that many of us who are paying taxes already are. And I would consider that close to double dipping. And of course, we always give money for school trips and all these other things. Mm-hmm. But, when you're dealing with school districts that have hundreds of millions of dollars, my school district is over $200 million a year in their budget.
Right.
For so many different things. But, how would another school district take that $200 million with the same type of students? How would they do it? The problem is we're kind of in a vacuum. Why does one school district do it this way? Why does one school district do it another way? Right. Not that I want the government to say this is the way you're doing it, but I think we really need to get people in there who know how to spend the money, who know how to, make a penny and turn it into 5 cents.
Mm-hmm. Now, last but not least, it seems that countries around the world, I'm talking about countries like Japan, even China now, even in Europe, it seems that their kids have more responsibilities, and they do something which I think is very interesting, which is that when kids get to high school, they go to something called a gymnasium, or a school that they kind of get all kinds of skills and training before they actually get to their colleges. Do you think that that is something that should take place in our country? Because our kids, they go to high school, then they go to college, and some of them don't even know what they want. And it causes a lot of depression, anxiety, and various other things that are pretty negative to kids. So if I had my choice, I would say, wouldn't it be interesting if each kid had like 1 year, say like in Israel, for example, where they go to the military? What's your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that's very interesting. I also think that you touched upon something that's very important, because I've been tutoring over 25 years. In the last 7 years, I've seen more people not graduate from the college they were originally accepted to and went to freshman year. Many times they can't handle the socializing. Many times they can't handle the rigor of the coursework, because their parents used to say to them in high school, do your homework, do your homework. Then all of a sudden you're in a dorm by yourself with a roommate, and they want to go to a party, they want to go out, and you really don't have people, the dedication to studies is not the same. I think that anytime we find someone, be it Japan or any country, where they're doing things better than we are, or they're getting better results, I'm a big, big believer. I'm teaching 33 years. I think I have excellent classroom management skills. I'm not perfect, but I think I'm getting close. And the main reason for that is there could be someone who's teaching 2 years. If they're managing a classroom in a certain way better than I am, if I have 2 kids late every day and they don't, I want to go in and say, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. So I would like to see us look into the program you mentioned in Japan. This is actually the first I'm hearing of it, and look into these things and see why it works. But, there's a different mindset. We need to know that people in that culture are really heavily dedicated to education.
Right.
And not that some of our kids aren't, but it's not like it was in the past, at least not what I see. And I've been around for a bit. Mm-hmm. So I think, it's like when I was researching my illness. We should leave no stone unturned, and even the greatest school can be better the following year. Uh-huh. So we need to just know that we're going to do the best we can and always improve. Don't rest on your laurels, because as you said, when kids don't know where they're going, don't have the proper direction, it causes a lot of stress. Some have to take a year off to find themselves and travel. And I think that, certainly we're not doing the best we can educationally. I think we're doing a good job in many instances. Some people are doing a great job. But I think by and large as a society, I think we need to raise the bar and raise our level of expectations. Nobody rises to low expectations. Mm-hmm. So we have to raise expectations, I think.
Well, I bet, and I more than bet that your students think of you in a great way, because you sound like you're really motivated and have a lot of passion for what you do. Now, at the end of my show, I always like my guests to tell people how they get to your book, a little bit more about it, and how are you on Facebook? And then if you have a website, tell our audience about it, because this way everybody will recognize that you've done a great job. So tell them.
Thank you.
Give them all the information.
Well, sure. Well, I have an author site, but the best way to get to me in the book and the author site is through my education site, which is gradesuccess.com. Like you're in the 4th grade, www.grad as in David, GRADESUCCESS, greatsuccess.com. And on the top, in red on the right side, it'll say Marc Hoberman's author website. You can find the book there. It's Search and Seizure. You can also go to Amazon. It's on Kindle also. And if you have other kinds of devices, I can send people ebooks if they write to me. So they can find out all about what we do. We do a lot of online tutoring. So a lot of people, I tutored someone from Israel, and I'm in New York. Except for the time difference, we have a live whiteboard. They see me, I see them. I write on it. They see it immediately. If you close your eyes, you wouldn't know we weren't in the room together. So it's enabled me to help parents and children outside of my local area, and we're excited about that. So that's where they would go to find out the services we offer. It's all subjects, not just me. We have college advisement, college counseling, college search, and helping with the application essay, the whole gamut, everything with education. But that's the key site, greatsuccess.com, and they can, of course, go to the author website and find out about that. I have a book for teachers also called The Ninth Period, which helps them, manage their classrooms effectively, and I'm adding to that and coming out with a second edition in about 6 months.
Well, my guest today has been Marc Hoberman. Now, Marc is the kind of teacher that everybody would want to have, and he's got so many programs going on, and each one of them has a special meaning and will have a special meaning to all the people who do them. So I want to thank Marc Hoberman for being on the Susan Brender Show. You've been a great guest.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Susan.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.